right. So thank you also, G'day, for doing that complicated in English.
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't have to do it in Bahasa, so you can hold on to that. So good job. So a couple of questions. I've got a couple I'm going to kick off with. So aren't these bikes still manufactured, sort of using non-sustainable materials? How does that factor into the equation? Who wants to take it?
You want to answer? Make a picture? Okay, that will be a very difficult answer, but I will answer not representing the manufacturer because if we see since 2 years ago, there are a lot of multinational company in Jakarta or in Indonesia are really care about the sustainable things. So yes, maybe it is not 100% yet sustainable, but I am sure the every motorbike, they try to push through their limit to get as sustainable as possible, except the power. I think that was my political answer.
Pretty simple. ICE bikes are sustainably manufactured, yes or no? No. Manufacturing practices are key on the supplier. And as Gray mentioned, it's who's the supplier. EV brands are pushing the boundaries for their supply and manufacturing practices and also responsibility and data points. So releasing information, brands that are pushing the boundaries of where they're sourcing products from. I think localization's an interesting point for Indonesia now. And then looking at, okay, they transitioned Sentrik from lead-acid battery sales to pushing to really focused on lithium-ion and sustainable battery practices. That's what EV and the focus is for us and for Indonesia. It's, okay, you're never going to solve the problem straight away. Let's take the steps to move forward and transition with ICE practices that aren't there in the first place.
All right, thank you. Next question, I'm going to put it to the audience in a second. What about government subsidies, tax incentives? That seems really confusing. I don't know if you touched on it, but what is available and how do people find out?
Okay, based on our practice in PT Sentrik, before at the first time subsidies are what is called announced by the government, it was 7 million per local. I mean for the one who has the ID of Indonesian. But then in the practice, there is, I don't know, this is government of Indonesia. Sorry, I always say this is not only Indonesia, but I think also all over the world. If we are talking about the money that's spending for the people, then sorry, I forgot the exact time, but I think it is about early this year. Then the incentive were changed. Now they are giving kind of we call it after if I buy a motorbike, then I need to pay full amount. Then they will give me refund money. Let's say 7 million, which is need also process. So I will say for us, for the marketing company like us, it's not really helping actually. I have my team there, Dia, for the incentive. He tried to push some really, really strong, but then there is a change from the government. Then we have struggling again. So I will say, I hope in the new president, they will try to get petrol expensive. So that was the only way, I think. Because as you know, Indonesia, we are the cheapest petrol price. We have the cheapest one compared to other country. That was from me, from you, sir.
Pretty similar. It's the only country in the world that subsidizes cigarettes and petrol. So I think you touched on it. The communication aspect from the government was pretty apparent, and the restrictions put in place when the first announcement was there on the consumer side This is just looking at consumer-based subsidies, so a discount that's provided to the customer, not on the production side. And there were requirements on PLN connection at your house, requirements on your income incentives. Then that got restricted and changed. Then it was localization for TKDN on production, which completely agree with, but it's just clear communication and action, which I think confused the public especially and put off people from even contemplating and purchasing EVs. Consumer-based subsidies are quite disincentivizing in the first place because they lower the market value of the product. They also lower people's intention to what the price point's going to be moving forward. Once they're released, are people going to pay that 7 million premium if they didn't have it in the first place? Politically, is the 250,000 going to happen when only 8,000 have been fulfilled in the last 24 months? I think the key is on production side tax incentives. So the luxury car tax has been removed for four-wheel vehicles for EVs for Indonesia. That's PPN has been reduced from 11 to 1 now. And it's, okay, how is that going to transition for manufacturers, assemblers, distributors to be able to help them to sell? I think that's a big point that we need to look at, etc. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, last question from me, then I'll put it to the audience. So the quality and the robustness of the bikes that are coming on the market now are really night and day. So these can really withstand Indonesian and Bali roads. But what about the performance bikes? For those of us who are going through a midlife crisis, where are they?
I think so. High performance bikes or mid performance. Like looking at a 5,000 watt motor and above, something that can go 100 kilometers an hour as a scooter. Looking back to where we were as EVs for Bali and Indonesia 4 years ago, we've come on leaps and bounds. I personally put over 30,000 kilometers on the bikes that sat over there, and it's been phenomenal, and it can withstand me, so it's pretty robust. Looking at mid to level high performance, you're going into that tax bracket. Which hasn't been sort of looked at. And G20 was a big event for Indonesia. It was a big event for EV. It was a big event for Bali. And a big event for high-performance electric bikes. But unfortunately, because of the substantial tax aspect, the prices of them are double, triple what they are in their home countries. So you're looking at a Energica Zero aspects that have been supplied to the military police, to the police force, but the premiums that they've paid via taxpayers' money, via police budget, are 2 or 3x. So a high-performance electric motorbike in Europe is 20,000 euros. The police paid 3 times that to put those bikes on the road. And then you're looking at a legalization, homologation, charging infrastructure, because they require the same amount. It's there. The first adoption is government. Trickle-down effect is coming. I was fortunate enough to ride one myself for a while. But it's, yeah. The key, I think, is mid-brands stepping up their game. You have, like New looking at the RQI series, Yadia bringing in their high-performance bike, mid-performance bike, Cake, unfortunately can't mention that name, GoWo, etc. So mid-level brands that are the stepping stone. Do they fulfill that midlife crisis aspect at a correct price point within a tax level?
I think I add a little bit. So, based on our practice in Sentrik again, so if the question is how is the performance from the electric motorbike, comparing to 2 or 3 years ago, what we have now is incredible. There is a lot of motorbike with the very good powertrain, and then they have a very strong battery, and then more advanced in technology. Yes, it is a lot of good performance, but your question is performance, right? Okay, so the performance is good, but then another problem is design. There is a lot of local company that they have good product, they have mid-level good product. Unfortunately, they don't have the good design. It is not like a giant company which is Yamaha, Honda. I don't know. Until now, there is not many conversation from them, from the big company like Yamaha and Honda, about the AV. I think they are still waiting about for the infrastructure. So if the question of performance, yes, I have been ride one, two, three, four different AV motorbike, and then two of them, I can use it, bring it to Munduk. You know Munduk, right? With those geographic situation, yes, we can. The problem is I need to go to my find my friend to ask permission. Can I charge my motorbike? That's the problem.
Cool. Okay, so let's get another couple of questions from you guys, from the audience. What questions do you have?
Easy question, please.
Easy question. No. Hard questions.
Thank you. I'm really curious about the swapping solutions that some of you mentioned. I'm wondering if we go with the battery swapping solution, could that lower the entry price because I don't have to own the battery? And also, how do you think about it from a systems perspective and an infrastructure perspective? Is that something you see happening?
Okay. Some of the it is not only happen here in Indonesia, but let's say, for example, is in Korea. They have a massive swap station. So the question, your question is it giving more benefit? Yes, it will be benefit for the consumer because you don't have to buy a battery. You don't have to do taking care about the battery because the battery it is become their battery. Let's say the swap system, the swap owner to taking care. So you will have a claim that, or I can also claim from Sentrik that the battery is lifetime, because you just swap. Even if your battery is broken, you can still swap it, as long it is not break. So yes, that's why from 2022 until now, the graphic of the AV motorbike is become quite high because the swap battery system. Maybe you want to add more?
The key for battery swap in Indonesia has really implemented that now already. You have the IBC, which is the Indonesia Battery Commission. Pertamina is involved in that, a large mining company and a production company from China. And also the parent company of GoJek, one of the first sort of manufacturers on a large scale that is within Indonesia. And then you have companies like a sister company from GoJek, Electrum, moving into the swap space. The big one that you see in every single Circle K already in Bali is Swap.id, a Chinese company that provides swappable batteries. I think what G'day mentioned is you're transferring the cost of ownership of the battery onto the provider. And as a consumer, it's beneficial within limits of what you can do with the battery and how far it can go. Also within that, the key for a large country like this is standardization. You're sort of looking at, okay, I go to a petrol station and I fill up with unleaded or diesel. A battery is shape, its connector, its voltage, its amp hours. How do you standardize that within a connection series? And the conversations are happening on a larger level, but it's tough. Okay, you're going to look at a Pertamina station having 4 or 5 different battery swaps. Is it going to be, is my bike fitting this one? How many swap stations do you have? There's other companies that are doing that. It's, I think, quite interesting also for what Bruce touched on in the first point of transition of what the bikes have now. So there's a lot of conversion companies growing for Indonesia as well to take ICE bikes and convert them to electric. And they're doing that via battery incentives from the government on a swappable basis. So it's kind of like saying, is one bike model right for everyone? No. It's how many models do we have out there right now on ICE, and how many providers can we help, can we grow to combat against that? No one solution is right for EV right now, but it's getting as many as we can on the road to help people understand and grow that. And battery swap is there.
And just to add quickly, and you see where standardization can really help. You don't want to have certain charging stations for certain types of bikes and different ones for other ones. I mean, even in Vietnam, GoTo is now using the swappable battery stations, the same ones that Grab use. They're all using the same technology, and then that's the way to get really scale. And you've seen in the US with electric vehicle cars, Tesla's one. That's the standard, which makes it so much easier to find a charging station. So the standardization, it'll take a while, and you'll get there. And it also depends on what you need. I mean, if you're on your bike all day, the idea of having a swappable battery is really important. But if you're using it for a little bit of, like many of us maybe do, a little bit of travel every day, it's okay to go home and plug it in. So it really depends on the use case. Okay. Next question.
Hi, thank you very much for the presentation. I'm very excited NIO is coming to, is in Bali. I used to live in China and I had a NIO myself and I loved it. So I would be interested to know, you were talking about incentives to get people to change to EV. Do you see any policies that are happening also from the government, or is it more an incentive-led approach? Because like just saying, for example, China, when I was there in 2012, there was still, most of the people are already using electric scooter, but there was still some gasoline scooter, and within, I think, 2 years, like they all got erased and it was just electric scooters, and it was because people would get fined when they were still using gasoline scooters. So do you see any of that happening here as well, or anything else in terms of policies?
Okay, in terms of policy, I think government of Indonesia now only have temporary. It is only the subsidy that they already announced. But for us, the way the subsidies are given are a little bit difficult. So I hope there is also another fine that happened like in China. Maybe then a lot of people will change and helping my my sales team to achieve the target. Sorry, just kidding. But yes, in Indonesia, we still hoping a lot of regulation and support from our local government. Like 3 months ago in December, if I'm not wrong, November or December, Sentrik also has MOU with the local government. We are sending almost 400 electric motorbike to be used by the government. It was helping, but the ecosystem are still not touched. Yes, we have a lot of MOU even with the Hyundai Kevico, with PT DAT, with the PLN, but government is always take more thinking than action. So I hope there is another businessman here with Kilat. I hope he will all helping me a lot with the swap station, sir.
Yeah, I think G'day sort of summarized it very well. There are positive incentives in place. There are no negative incentives, sort of no penalty incentives, as far as I'm aware of. A lot of pilot incentives have been put in place, like PLN implemented back in 2019 for their employees to switch to electric. You get a rebate on your electricity bill, a token, etc. So there's a lot of positive moves forward, but miscommunication and lack of information, I think, is key for the consumer and also the suppliers. Even with the subsidy that's in place, 7 million per KTP, removed restrictions for a consumer, the supplier has to bear cash flow risk of recuperating that subsidy from the government. A lot of dealerships and infrastructures on distributions can't fulfill that. And the Indonesian government looking at a surplus, negative, etc. How is it going to be fulfilled? So they are there. It's just the clarity and the execution isn't there.
They just a quick point at the end. So I think that there is an opportunity, I think, with new bikes particularly now raising the emissions standards from the government, so that the usual manufacturers are really forced to think about how to make electric bikes affordable for sort of getting towards the ordinary person and making them affordable. And I'm very sensitive to how this impacts ordinary people, because you don't want to have, again, what's the point of all this? Is to help everybody. So you don't suddenly want to increase the petrol prices for ordinary working people, but there has to be some adjustment. But I think GoJek and GoTo are thinking about this. How do we switch over all of these riders in an affordable way? How can we rent them their bikes in a way that actually the cost is less than it is today, and they more than make up for that in their earnings? So I think we have to be creative with ordinary people. We cannot just solve this for the affluent people, and that's incredibly important. Same with coal power. You can't just switch off coal power, but ultimately we have to. But we need to think about the people. What do they move to? What do they go do next? So.
I'm going to be a bit of a negative Ned here. I thought the presentations were amazing and the data amazing. I think the projections are absolute bullshit. And I say that from experience, as Oliver knows. But are there any EV designed, built, assembled from local Indonesian brands, from Indonesian parts, 100% from Indonesia?
Not 100%. No one will say 100%. I think you can look the data up. There's the TKDN, so it's localized parts, the figure. I think the first mover in that space was government-owned. It got developed out of an Indonesian university, and that's Gesits. They unfortunately had a bumpy road of their product, fulfillment, etc. So that would be the first leader. They took the VRQ1, the first bike we put on the road in Bali, and the most popular model back then, the Honda Vario, and pretty much built it together with some specs from high-performance electric bikes like Zero. They put a drive belt on it, etc., which failed miserably. But they are there, and then you have brands like Alva, I think is probably the next Indonesian-grown company. It's taking assembly from a Chinese sort of base model, and then but the design team and the specs and what they're looking at, and as a company, they have significant backing in Indonesia for development. And then, as Bruce touched upon, you have Electrum growing in Indonesia. They broke ground. They're raising funds. You have Maka, that's Indonesian developed. They've spent 4 years on their development. The bike looks awesome. It's not released to the public. They're going through their growth aspects and hopefully will launch in the next few years. But it's like, okay, do we take internationally verified bikes, bring them into the country, help grow together, grow and work, move forward with Indonesian made and Indonesian growth? And that's what Jacoby pushed for the TKDN in this subsidization, and pushed for development and growth. It's not coming in preaching and saying, okay, EV should be this. It's how do we work together? And then Indonesia, as its nickel resources and production and export, is huge for two-wheelers. Its trickle-down effect is slow. Four-wheelers are seeing a significant investment on that, but for two-wheelers, it's very much on the supplier side to provide that.
Okay, so I will back to the question. Is there any local company that create 100% of Indonesian design and everything for the AV? I will easily answer no, because the technology is much more taken from other. Like in our company, in PT Sentrik, we have also MOU with A3 Mobility, and another one will coming soon. We also have the projection in next year. This year will start, and then I hope next year we will start with the manufacturing but assembling to try to get the TKDN. So for easy, if the question is like that, then I will say no. But yes, we will have more and more TKDN brand EV motorbike here in Indonesia. So I think that was my answer.
Sorry, just to follow up, I 100% agree with the TKDN. Okay, I really do, and that's why I asked the original question, because the third largest 2 and 3 wheeler motorbike market on the planet.
It is.
Why is there no, with however many million bikes they want to have on the road, EVs? Why is there no major subsidies? Why are there no local brands? Why is there no major government money going to this? Why isn't coal subsidies coming into this as well? Why isn't there significant investment from the government to support a local legend, a local, business? And I say that as somebody trying to bring in a foreign motorbike, and Oliver knows, and I know how freaking difficult it's been to bring some competition to the market, at least to try and inspire something here. So I think what you guys are doing is incredible, and I really salute you. And I think there needs to be more EVs on the road. But if there isn't significant investment of both time, money, and knowledge from this country, then it will simply never happen. You're pushing the proverbial uphill. So I think if Indonesia really wants to achieve those numbers, then they've got to get really serious about achieving those numbers. Otherwise, we're going to be at today's numbers, which for the third largest 2 and 3 wheeler motorbike market in the world are bullshit.
Yeah, no, I think it's true of many governments around the world. There needs to be a multiple of what's being spent today. There are hundreds of millions of dollars being spent coming in from the government, but there are billions this is costing by not doing it. So I think there will be a step change. The will is there. It's just not going to be as linear as you would like. I think there's going to be oh my God, we have to do something. I think that's going to happen more and more and more. So I'm always an optimist. It's just really slow getting started. And then just very quickly to your point, if you want to have an affordable motorbike or a car, you need international platforms. If you make everything 100% in one country, you can, but it's very expensive. But there are a lot of manufacturing jobs. A lot of manufacturing is coming to Indonesia. And as it matures, I think that the percentage will become more and more. But I think there's nothing made in any country that's really 100%. Maybe in China, but it's unusual. It's very unusual, and it's difficult in a new region. And Thailand, yeah.
I think just to add, you touched on the 2-wheel numbers. Why has Indonesia not done that in ICE already? So why is there not an Indonesian petrol bike developed or produced? I think there's movements there, but as Bruce touched on, it's going to take time. If they wanted to focus as a manufacturing on 2 wheels, they would have done it 30 years ago to fulfill the market rather than Honda and Yamaha from Japan. So those numbers are there, exactly.
All right, another question?
Hello. Thank you for the presentation. It was very great. You talk about the incentive and the subsidies, but it's not only about that. It's talking about the whole infrastructure, where you said there was a lot of charging station, but it's not only this. It's also to find a spot where to charge. It's not always obvious wherever you go with an electric motorcycle, wherever you go to the mall or to any cafe in Canggu. There's a lot of cafes that don't accept to charge the scooter, actually. And in a mall, you have to drive 1 hour to find a spot where to charge. So I think where you can incentive the people to buy a EV, it's also by having a nice road infrastructure also, because here it's not always the road is not always in good state, and for EV scooters and vehicles, you need a nice road also, because you need also to save electricity. And when you're driving electric, you're more aware of saving every watt that you can take. So driving on a nice road is also motivation to buy an electric vehicle and find a nice spot, and all the business around is also EV friendly. I think it's also something that can motivate people to go more electric for their vehicle and transportation.
I think, just to speak on Oliver's behalf, I think one of the important changes is that the bikes are much more robust. How many miles have you done now, up and down Bali?
On that guy's 30,000 now. I'm a big guy.
So
I go through the shortcuts from Sese in here, and
yeah, so I've been waiting as well, and I'm at the point now where I am going to buy an electric bike.
Yeah.
Because I feel it can take my weight and it can take some knocking around. So finally.
But I think touching on your first 2 points for charging and access to electricity, that's a massive factor. And I think what Sentrik does it already, and Gade's main point for his presentation was all about infrastructure. And I think I've never been turned down yet anywhere for charging my battery. That's lucky though. And accessibility for sort of locals and Indonesians, that's a completely different aspect. So it's the off-site charging points and everyone working together, but that's been pushed to the business sector massively by the government. The charging stations that are being talked about are high-performance charging stations. They're not for these bikes. They're for cars and they're for fast charging. They've been adapted now for low-performance electric bikes by adding in mitigation sectors. One other transition factor is battery swapping. For the I drive 110 kilometers a day, I need to swap 10K 2 times a day. And people working together and businesses working together to say, okay, like we have in our dealership location 8 charging points. That's not just for new, that's for every single electric bike. Sentrik have it as well, free charging. Working with local businesses, working with large conglomerates to say, okay, we accept EV, and that's a positive incentive. The government can mandate that. The government can do a lot of things, but as businesses, we can say, okay, Tropical Nomad accepts charging. Tropical Nomad does a covered charging port. That's the transitional factor, and it's not just for a brand, it's for every EV. That's the key, to give accessibility.
Okay, so I'm looking at people looking very hot. So I think thank you very much for surviving. Okay, we've got one more question. Sorry, someone didn't get a chance. So last question.
Thanks for all the presentation. I'm not here to take the limelight or anything to share anything. I'm also from an EV company, but I would like to point to that gentleman. I agree that it's all bullshit, right? Basically. About this topic today, my question is, because we talk about a lot of adoption and ecosystem, I think they're actually linked. There's no ecosystem, there's no adoption anyway, right? So, but you see, we can say till the cows come home, we don't control the OEM, we don't control the supply chain. How are you going to go around that, right? Talking about E3, because it's Korean make, it's Korean sales. I'm nothing against, leave all politics aside. We cannot disagree. Supply chain in China is the cheapest. I own a powertrain company in China. I'm a Singaporean, but I have to develop everything there. I can't get anything else cheaper. That's a reality, all right? Even sales. How come E3 is selling 120 million and I can develop a bike that is equivalent or even better at a fraction, about 1/3 of it? That's because where the supply chain is from. And also touch on the robustness. Bikes like all EV, even I actually started new in Jakarta 4 years ago. But you know, the problem is spare parts, right? The spare parts is expensive. How is Sentrik handling it, and what are your problems? Battery problem, spare part problem? They're too costly. We don't solve this. How are we going to convince the guy out there? That's the most important one. They're the one who clock more mileage than any one of us. The GoJek rider, the Grab rider, they are the one we need to convert. We are already converted just by coming here. I think I can sell you all a bike very easily later, you know, when you try. I'm not here to do so. But basically, those are the fellas we need to change, because resale is a big problem. EV bike, there's no resale. Precisely. There's no ecosystem. The ecosystem is the more important part. How is Sentrik going to do that? Because you sell multiple brands. Someone will buy a United, come back and says, I love your E3. Can you take back my bike? There's no way they're going to take it back, because the battery is the problem. You don't solve that, you have no EV. Right? Basically, that's my question. Sorry, also a bit of sharing. Sorry about that. Thank you.
It's a really businessman question. Okay, I will only... Maybe I cannot answer all of those, because there is too many distraction. There is too many... regulation that need to be changed by the government. That was the problem. But based on our experience, in Sentrik, actually, we do kind of okay, there is a new brand, and then we try to, what is called, we do a trial on the product until we say that okay, this one is sellable, this one is good. So those problems that say it is really our problem. Let's say there is a problem. I will say Gesit. Let's say that was Indonesian company name. The first one, they said they are the startup of the AV in Indonesia, but their problem is not only the product quality on the powertrain, but also the after-sale service. There is the spare part. So let's say our client buy this motorbike in cheap price, but then there is a problem of waiting to get the spare part. That was a really massive problem for us. So that's why now in Sentrik we are really careful, and then we try to focus on the ecosystem. That's why my presentation is bringing the ecosystem. We are still, in our team in Sentrik, we are still, we try to develop the Efficient Bali campaign, which is involving all the battery company and then the AV manufacturer to help us to build the ecosystem. There is a lot of idea, but let's see how it come, because then I need to talk to Oscar, I need to talk to user to build on those ecosystem. The problem, let's say like this, the ecosystem is real problem here in Bali, but then I will say, okay, let's use our lifestyle. Can we change our lifestyle? Can we change our mindset? Just maybe Bruce already tell you about, we are choosing AV motorbike based on our needed. So like me, I'm not using a motorbike often because I was working from home. So any AV motorbike is okay. But for fun, let's say for hobby, then we will spend more money on the AV motorbike, which is giving us a style and then power. So it's really depend to us. But to change the mindset from, let's say we are using motorbike, petrol motorbike. If something happened with the petrol is off, then we just go to the station or in the warung we buy petrol. That easy. But to change from those concept of living to a planning, that was difficult. So when I'm using a motorbike, AV motorbike, then I'm start plan. So I will go from here to Ubud, then I will swap there. There is a swap station in the central of Ubud, let's say, and then I can go a little bit too near Tegalalang, then I have to going back. After I see the battery is 30%, then that was a call sign that I need to go returning back. So I think that was the only solution for now if we want to get greener Bali in the future.
Cool. So I think just to wrap up, I think, look, we are sort of the early adopters, the early majority sitting in this room. Very important people in terms of we probably will be some of the earliest people to actually buy these things and use them, and that will take another step forward for all the manufacturers to make them cheaper, more affordable, fix all the infrastructure issues. But it is 10 times better than it was a few years ago. It will be 10 times better again. We don't realize that we're in the middle of an environmental revolution, just like the industrial revolution. We just don't know it yet. So there's a lot of things going to happen really quickly. But we can't fix everything at once. We just keep taking a step forward, a step forward, a step forward, and we can all do something. So thank you very much for attending, everybody. We're now going to go on to networking. We can chat. I should have reminded you that there is a WhatsApp group for Scale Climate Action where we can continue having conversations, answer questions, find out about other things that are going on. So thank you very much, and thank you very much to our speakers for their time.